Hi everybody, long time no see. I had the best of intentions for the second half of the year, but all my good intentions, all my plans were all thwarted by stupid health issues. Nothing scary, just something very, very inconvenient that made it all but impossible to film with my rather complicated setup for a couple of months. And then for the last month or so, I was just so busy getting my life back to normal that there was just no question of having any kind of filming schedule. I did read a lot in the last few months, but it was mostly trash, to be honest. I mean, enjoyable trash, like popcorn reading, but not a lot of it was anything to write home about. Some of it was, though, and I have every intention of finishing the year strong and wrapping up my 2023 reading year in a decent manner and catch you guys up, those of you who are still around after this recent break and all the ones that came before. So glad you are still here. I appreciate each and every one of you who watch my videos and who still watch my videos, even though I have done very little to deserve it recently. Anyhow, in order to get you caught up, I thought I'd give you a little bit of an overview of the things that I read recently, the things I'm reading right now, and what I'm planning to read in the last few weeks of the year. So in honor of Nonfiction November, which has just finished, I'm going to start with a nonfiction book, which I actually read in November. The Book of Hope by Jane Goodall. This is a book about, well, the current state of environmentalism, environmentalist movements, and in particular about the mindset that Jane thinks is necessary in order for those movements to succeed. The mindset being one of hope and hopefulness, which for Jane, as she explains, is not a passive feeling, but rather the force that drives you, a mindset that makes you want to accomplish things, get things done. I thought that this should have been a 2-page magazine article, and if it had been, it would have been much less embarrassing, because at the end of the day, neither Jane nor Douglas Adams, who is actually the one who wrote this book, who interviewed Jane and then turned this interview into a narrative. It's more or less narrative nonfiction. Neither one of them are great philosophers and great thinkers, it pains me to say. And when they are talking about these rather philosophical concepts, it is really, really cringy. I enjoyed the couple of episodes that Jane recounts of her life and her research and her life among the chimpanzees. But all in all, her book on that topic, In the Shadow of Man, would have been much more worthwhile, I think, to pick up than this one. This one was really cringy, and it goes into the little free library right when the weather gets a little bit drier. Another nonfiction that I've been reading for this whole year, in fact, is The Gulag Archipelago by Alexandre Solzhenitsyn, here in the German translation. And I've been reading this all year on and off, not because it isn't captivating, on the contrary. Once I pick it up, the chapters usually fly by. It's a massive book and the chapters are 25 to 30 pages long, but they just fly by in spite of the heavy topic. But because the topic is so heavy, there is a little bit of a barrier every time for me to pick it up. But once I do pick it up, time flies by. And that is a huge literary accomplishment, I think. Solzhenitsyn just makes you want to read on and on, even though the topic is so heavy and the episodes that he recounts are so terrible. And it's not sensationalism that drives you and makes you want to read on, but it's his style of writing that just sweeps you up and carries you along. And so reading it doesn't feel like a chore at all. And I've mentioned it before, but I thought I'd mention it again. The original version of the Gulag Archipelago is actually 3 times as long as this book. So this is a condensed version, but it is one that was authorized by Solzhenitsyn. And it has been translated into any language virtually. I think that the original has been translated into as well. So I urge anyone who is interested in the Gulag Archipelago to pick up this condensed version. Otherwise, I think you will burn out, even though Solzhenitsyn's writing style is so accessible and so sweeping. I don't think I'll finish the Gulag Archipelago this year, though. I think I'm going to take it with me into the new year. But one more non-fiction book that I am planning to read and hopefully finish this year is kind of a consolation prize for me, because I once again was too late in trying to get tickets for the Magic Flute at the local opera house, which apparently they stage every December. And I was once again too late, so I thought I'm going to pick up a book about the Magic Flute, which explains the elements in the opera, by German scholar Jan Assmann, who is one of the most famous German scholars right now. He is originally an Egyptologist, but he has written a lot on cultural studies and really anthropological studies in general. And a few years ago, he and his wife, Aleida Assmann, won the Peace Prize of the German book trade, which is one of the biggest book prizes, or one of the biggest prizes in general in Germany. And they won it for writing on very current issues. So he's kind of almost like a chronicler of humanity at this point. And the Magic Flute is a topic that really spans the centuries and the millennia, really. So he is a great person to be writing on this topic, and I think that this will be a real treat. As far as fiction is concerned, in the last few months, or the whole second half of the year really, I've been on sort of a quest to find good epic fantasy. I used to read a lot more epic fantasy than I do nowadays. I've sort of fallen out of love with it recently, because everything that I seemed to pick up was, I don't think I can put it diplomatically, it was just dumb trash. But I was sure that there was good stuff out there that I just haven't found yet. So I made a real effort, and I had mixed results. I'm going to make a video about this quest, dedicated to just this quest, in a few weeks. But for now, let's just highlight some of the good discoveries that I made. I've already talked about The Ruin of Kings by Jenn Lyons, which is the first book in the A Chorus of Dragons series. I loved this first book. It appeared as one of my favorites in my mid-year freakout tag, I think. This video was sort of a combination of mid-year freakout tag and best books of my first half of the year tag. I have since read the second book, which was plain awful, but that was entirely because of the main character of this second book. And I think once the story returns to the original set of characters, it will get much better again. I really hope it does, because this first book was so promising. I really loved reading it, and I'm going to talk more about this series once I've finished it. Another great discovery was a book that I picked up by Daniel Abrams, who is famous although you might not know it, he is famous for being one part of the author duo James S. Corey, who wrote the Expanse novels. And in fact, after I read the first book by him that I read, I immediately went and bought Leviathan Wakes as a Kindle deal. But the book of his that I read is not called Shadow and Betrayal. Shadow and Betrayal is just the title of the bind-up of the first two novels in the Long Price Quartet. And the first novel is actually called A Shadow in Summer. And I loved reading this one. Daniel Abraham just takes so much time in developing the details of his world and of his characters. And the book isn't long, the first book. It's just about, or just over 300 pages, but it feels so rich, so lush, and I really appreciate it when authors take time to develop their worlds nowadays. In an age where attention spans seem to dwindle by the hour, and so many fantasy authors just rush their stories and they feel more or less just like a story concept and not a fully fleshed out novel. This is exactly the opposite. It is just classic, good, epic fantasy by an author who really takes his time and loves the details of his world. And this world has a little bit of magic in that there are poets, so-called poets, who are trained and able to bind abstract concepts. They bind them by giving them human form and are in this way able to restrain them and to make them do their bidding. They enslave those abstract concepts and make them lend their powers to their cause, which can be economical, it can be warfare, just whatever the poets, or rather the rulers in whose service the poets are, want them to do. But now things have been set in motion by one of those concepts, actually, that might have the power to make this whole world order crumble or implode, and there seems to be a revolution brewing. I loved reading this one, and I should really be picking up the second book, because the second book is called A Betrayal in Winter, so it's perfect for the season. The reason I haven't picked it up yet is that as far as epic fantasy goes, at the moment I'm pretty much occupied and am working at full capacity reading the Engineer Trilogy by K.J. Parker, which I picked up because I had the second book on my shelf, and there is a read-along happening initiated by Ellen from the channel The Library of Alexandria. It's happening on his Discord channel, and this was the perfect kick in the butt that I needed for me to pick up this book, which had been gathering dust on my shelf for almost a year now, or over a year even. I bought it on a whim in a used bookshop because it was cheap and it was K.J. Parker. Although I haven't had the best of experiences with K.J. Parker in the past, but before I read the Engineer Trilogy, I had only read several of his novellas, which didn't work for me because they are very much idea books, and if you don't think that the ideas that K.J. Parker uses in them are all that mind-blowing and mind-blowingly original, then I don't think there is much to enjoy in these novellas, because the characters are very much just vessels for K.J. Parker's great ideas. And, well, if you don't think the ideas are so great, then there isn't much else of greatness in the novellas either. However, the Engineer Trilogy is really... it's one of the most stressful reads that I can imagine ever having gone through. but it is really excellent in the character department. The characters are all so flawed in a believable way. And it's just one big, complicated mess as far as characters and character relationships are concerned. And it is so human, so believable, so realistic. The exact opposite of the novellas, and I'm loving it. So the third and final volume is The Escapement, which we are going to read in December. And I'm sure it's going to break my heart. And I'm excited about reading it, but I'm also scared, and I'll also be happy to be done reading the trilogy and done with all the stress and heartbreak. Another epic fantasy that I plan on reading this year still is In the Forests of Serre by Patricia A. McKillip, which is of a very different caliber, I think, because this is more or less a fae fantasy. It's about an enchanted forest where when you lie down there, you are taken into the fairy realm. At least that's what I get from the blurb. The last book of hers that I read was The Bards of Bone Plain, which has become an instant fantasy favorite. And I'm hoping that In the Forest of Serre will get me the same feeling. And I think after I've read this one, a Patricia A. McKillip video is in order. Apart from that, I will probably be very busy in the next couple of weeks getting through my huge holiday TBR. I have a huge virtual pile of holiday romances to get through. Most of them are very short. They are novella length or even short stories. One short story novelette that I started reading last night and immediately fell in love with is called He's Behind You by Clare London. It's set in a small village in Devon, and it is about, or the setting is the production of a Christmas pantomime. And it's so funny and quirky, just as you would expect from a book about a Christmas pantomime. But the voice of the narrator, the first person narrator, is also very snarky, very sarcastic, and therefore it never ventures into twee territory, which is very important. I hate anything twee, especially with Hallmark holiday cheer, you know, not my thing at all. In fact, a lot of these holiday romances that I amassed are actually a bit of mysteries and crime novellas, crime stories. Some of them are once again by Josh Lanyon. This has been the year of Josh Lanyon for me. I read a couple of her gay crime novels a few years ago. The first of her very famous Adrian English novels, and one or two more crime, romantic, suspense novels. And I thought they were okay, but again, nothing to write home about. And I didn't pick up any of her books for a couple of years until last Christmas. I picked up one of her Christmas novellas, short stories that aren't actually mysteries, which is very rare. And I enjoyed it so much. A Case of Christmas, it is called. I enjoyed it so much that I thought I should really give her a second chance, get back into her crime novels. And I read so many of them this year, in addition to some of her rare non-mystery novellas, and I enjoyed most of them so much. Especially lately in October and November, I read her Mermaid Murders and sequel novels, which are really fantastic mystery novels as well as romance novels. So if you like this combination of romance and mystery and romantic suspense, I recommend that you look into the Mermaid Murders. It'll be worth your time and money. My next Christmas read by her that I'm going to pick up is probably going to be The Dickens with Love, which is about the discovery of a new manuscript by Charles Dickens and the fight for it. Very fitting, of course, for the Christmas theme, the holiday theme, Charles Dickens. Speaking of holiday cheer, we have had, well, first it was a winter wonderland outside, then it turned into Snowmageddon, but now it is winter wonderland again. The sun has come out. It is freezingly cold outside. It's almost midday and it's still about -5 degrees or so, which is really cold for December in Germany. But the sun is out, and so I'm going to go outside for a walk and frolic in the snow and produce some vitamin D. And I'm going to end this video with a few impressions from my winter Sunday walk and the winter wonderland that we've been drowning in here for the last couple of days. I hope you are having a lovely December as well, in whatever climate you live in. I'll hopefully see you again soon. Thank you for sticking with me again. I'll see you soon, guys. This time, I promise. Bye.